Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. It is my pleasure to be with all of you, and I have to say this is the first time I've done anything like this. Obviously we've all been doing lots of Zoom meetings for different reasons, but this is the first time I'm presenting in this format for something as important as a Friday worship service. And so it's my pleasure to be here. And I want to thank Shadia and the Muslim Space community for inviting me. A quick introduction, my name is Amanda Quraishi, and I'm here in Austin, Texas, which is where Muslim Space is located. I'm not a scholar. I'm a member of the Muslim Space community, and what I do for a living is I work in digital social media. And so when I was asked to present today, I had to, think about what I was actually qualified to talk about, and especially in this particular format. And so what I want to talk about very briefly before we get on with the rest of our Jummah activities is how we bring the prophetic character online, right? How do we act as Muslims on the internet? And I feel really strongly about this topic for lots of reasons. One, because this is what I do for a living. Two, because I'm Muslim and I spend a lot of time engaging with Muslims and watching Muslims interact with one another online. And also because I feel really powerfully. I mean, I converted to Islam, alhamdulillah, in 1999. And one of the things that has always drawn me from the very beginning to Islam is how practical it is as a religion, right? And how much value there is in even modern life, right? In our day-to-day modern living. These things that were brought to humanity almost 2,000 years ago are still able to find a very valuable, practical application in today's environment. And I think a lot about our Prophet, peace be upon him. I think a lot about his character and about how he conducted himself and led change in his culture, in his community. I know a lot of us now are very concerned about change and how we want to see the world improve. And so I look to him, I look to Muhammad, peace be upon him, for those kinds of cues. How do we emulate him? And what would he be like, right, if he were alive today? If Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had Facebook, how would he be engaging with people? Right? And I feel like that is our sort of responsibility. It's our mandate as Muslims to bring those questions, and specifically that question, since he was our exemplar, right? He was the person that we're supposed to be following. How do we need to be thinking about that in all of our activities? And we are in a really difficult place right now in history. We are challenged with so many rapid changes in the way that we do things, in the way that we build communities and connect with one another and conduct our business and conduct our Jummah, right? Like, this is something that has never happened before. And so I think it's really an important and valuable opportunity for us to reflect on these things. So I'll start, and this will be very brief. But as I was thinking through these things, I came up with 4 different categories where I thought that we should reflect on what it means to be Muslim and to emulate the prophetic character when we're doing work online. And by online, I don't just mean on Facebook or on Twitter. I also mean in our WhatsApp groups. I mean in our Zoom groups, in our texting with our family, anything where we're not sitting face to face with someone. And the reason why that's important is because these devices that we use and these platforms that we use often have a dehumanizing effect, or they make us feel emboldened to do and say things that we might not necessarily be comfortable saying to somebody's face. And so even people who are not Muslim, right, are really thinking through these things, these ways that we're engaging with one another. And so I do think that this is a moment where a lot of this conversation is happening, a lot of this reflection is happening, and we're seeing some fallout. We're seeing some really bad things happen with communities, with politics, with justice, social justice issues, where the ways that we've been doing things for so many years have changed, and we haven't caught up with it. And because of that, we're seeing some ugly conflict, right? We're seeing some stress in the way that we handle being online. We're seeing kind of crossed wires and disinformation, and so all of us need to really think about this. And I am. It's something I think about all the time. So there are four ways that I think that we can bring the prophetic character into the work that we do or the engagement that we have online. And the first is to be an influencer for good. And this should go without saying, right? Our prophet, peace be upon him, influenced people for good. And there's a lot of talk on the internet about being an influencer, right? Everybody wants to be this voice for their favorite cause or their favorite issue. And the bottom line is, it's very easy to build this sort of persona online, and there's lots of tips and tricks for how to do that. And a lot of that is being used for, building ourselves up and sort of making a personal brand, and making sure that our voice is louder than other people and that our agenda gets pushed forward. And sometimes it can be very self-promotional, right? Let's not kid ourselves. It can also be a matter of ego, right? It can be a matter of self-importance. We all feel now that we have this platform, our personal platform online, that our voice should be heard. And when we look at how miraculous it is that we're able to have conversations with so many people now across time and space, we want to make sure that we're using these incredible technologies for good. And that means questioning whether or not what we're putting out there and the way that we're putting it out there is actually uplifting, that it's got a positive sort of end in mind, that it's not just about listening to ourselves speak or getting other people to like what we put out there or saying things just, for our own glorification. Everything that we do as Muslims is really for what, right? It should be to glorify Allah. And we can do that without going out and preaching to people or, proselytizing, just by the way that we engage with one another, just by our manner of being is a great way to lift up the name of Allah. Even people who, they may not even know that we are Muslim, right? They may not know all the particulars of our personal life, but we do business dealings with them, or we have projects that we work on with them. When they see the way that we do things and the kinds of things that are important to us as people, as individuals, they know that there's something different about us. And the thing that's different about us is that we believe, our beliefs, right? The way that we believe in one God, and these really important teachings that our prophet gave us about how to engage with humanity and how to seek justice and how to be humble, and all of these wonderful, rich, beautiful parts of our tradition. And those things can come through in the way that we engage online. You don't have to go out and tell people, right? You can show people by the way that you do things. So I think that that's a really important thing. And it's the reason why we have to set that as a goal is because it's easy to forget, right? It's easy for us to forget that this is what we want to do when we go online and we're in an environment where everything is just crazy. You're on social media, you're encountering people with all these different views, and you're encountering people with different standards for engagement, and they, that can rub off on us. And so we have to constantly be reminding ourselves, who are we? How do we want to appear? And what is really important? What is the focus of the work and the topics and the things that we put out there? And I say this, and I hope this comes across. I say this as somebody who does this for a living and who is fully aware that I make these mistakes constantly, right? This is a really hard thing to do. We're battling against our own human nature. None of us are as good as our prophet was. Alhamdulillah. You know, he was an amazing example. We're always going to make mistakes. And so I don't want us to beat ourselves up about it. I don't want us to say, well, we can't do it perfectly, so we shouldn't do it at all. Because I do think that being online has some really valuable opportunities for us as Muslims, as individuals, right? So we have to commit to keep trying to make good our focus. Now, the other thing on the flip side is, in our second point about ways that we can engage online with the prophetic in the prophetic tradition, is to stand against what's wrong, right? So not only do we want to uplift what's good, not only do we want to talk about what's good and we want to promote what's good, we also want to very clearly stand against what's wrong, right? Now this is and it's important to make those two differentiations, right? Because our prophet did both of those things, right? It is important when we see things that are wrong, when we see things that are evil, when we see people being hurt or oppressed, that we take the opportunity to stand up against those things, right? It's not enough just to say good stuff. We also have to make it very clear that there's a line there and that we don't want to cross it, and that we don't want other people to cross it either, right? And so how do we do that? Right? There's lots of ways. For one thing, we can share information about, you know, things that are happening that are really upsetting, or you know, that we know that are wrong. Right? We see things happening to people in our communities. We see, you know, we see people being mistreated because of the color of their skin. We see people being treated badly because of, you know, being born in the wrong place, the wrong country. We see, you know, governments doing things that hurt other people, and we should be speaking up against those things, right? And my personal view is that it's really nice to have a balance between uplifting the good and standing against what's wrong, what's bad. And the reason why is because it's really easy to lose hope when you go online, right? It's really easy when you are on the internet and you are constantly surrounded by people who are talking about everything that's wrong in the world, to get really sad and depressed. And the prophetic character was not like that. While he stood against what's wrong, he also made sure that people understood that there is a reason to hope, right? And that there is a reason to act for the positive, and that it wasn't all just desperation and despair. And even in the darkest moments of the early years of the Muslim community, right, there was this hope, I guess is the word, or understanding that those things were not going to last forever, that there was a reason to keep going, and that our faith and our belief and our commitment to doing what's right is the thing that's going to help lift us and the people around us up. And so we have to have both of those things. And I say that as somebody who, you know, I'm immersed in this. I think all of us at this point are immersed in this. We're online all the time, and we don't always stop to consider how hard it can be on us emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, even physically, to be surrounded by negativity all the time, right? So stand against what's wrong, lift up what's right, and do it in a way so that we are able to maintain a balance in our lives, right? Isn't that what Islam is about? It's a middle way. It's a balanced way of living. And even those of us who are in the trenches, like really fighting against oppression or whatever, have need for joy, right? For a joyful resistance, for remembering what's good in the world and what's worth fighting for, I guess. The third thing that we can take from the story, the prophetic character, and bring into our online life is this idea of building community. And I think, if anything, that our opportunity now as Muslims uh, is greater than at any point in time in history to build community, right? To build, to use these online spaces, and especially in a country like America, where Muslims are a minority, right? Muslims are maybe 3% of the total population, and we're spread all over this country. And when you have places where people can convene across time and space online, you can build a very robust community that otherwise you would not have access to. And I've noticed this in my own kind of trajectory through the years as I've built relationships in the Muslim community across the country and around the world, that this is an opportunity that could not have happened before, right? We can set up and build spaces where people like this, right, like Muslim space, where you can have someone talking, and at any point people can jump in from all over the country, all over the world, and have these conversations and be engaging with one another around things that are important to us, right, as Muslims. And I think that that's wonderful, and I think that that's something that our prophet did beautifully, right? The prophet was given a gift unlike anything else, right? Prophethood is the gift. And rather than making, himself an influencer, like putting himself up on a pedestal, he used that gift to build out a community. And that community wasn't just about him, right? It was about Allah, it was about the message, and it was about bringing in all of the interesting, good, faithful, gifted people that were drawn to that message. And this is one thing I feel really strongly that we can do better. Muslims tend to, have sort of a mindset of scarcity at times, especially in America. And I feel like we have so much that we can accomplish and especially in this country, right? We have so many resources. We have some of the best and the brightest people in our community, and there's unlimited opportunity and work for us. And rather than getting to that, I see a lot of infighting at times between Muslims, especially online. And what I would love to see is for all of us to recognize that, we are a diverse group. The early Muslim community was a diverse group. The Hadith regularly talk about how people in the community had very different points of view, right? That's okay. That's good. That's baked in to our religion. And it doesn't mean that we have to fight with each other. It doesn't mean one of us is better than the other. What it means is we make space. We make space and we invite people in, and we allow people to do work that is aligned to their gifts, right? We can't all be everything. We can't all speak to every need. We can't all each of us do all of the work that needs to be done. And so making, I guess, stepping back and allowing for people to be Muslim in the way that they are inherently and naturally Muslim, and to contribute to our community is, I think, a very valuable lesson from our prophetic leadership. All the early Muslims were not the same, right? They had different characteristics and personalities, and so are we. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's the thing that is going to keep us surviving and thriving and growing and learning and developing and innovating and being a community, right? If everybody thought the same way and did things the same way, it would actually make us more vulnerable and weaker. Now, the final thing that I think we can take from the prophetic tradition is this idea of not what we do, but how we do it. And I touched on that a little bit earlier, but I do feel like our prophet was, I don't think we talk enough. I don't hear enough. I mean, we hear about the things he did. We hear about we hear about Beck and all of these other things, but his personality, right? This was the thing when I first started learning about Islam, right? And I would read, Sirah, and I was so intrigued by this person who, his personality was such that he didn't have to force people, right? Like, people were drawn to this message because of who he was and the way that he did it. And I feel like, all that we do as individuals and as Muslims in this modern world, we have a lot going on. We have a lot of pressure. We have a lot of stress, to say the least. And I think about how, how would he act if he were confronted in the way that that we are when we go online? And would he be angry? Would he allow himself to, speak in these angry words that we use all the time? Would he allow himself to be drawn into pointless arguments? Would he allow himself to, even the people that he disagreed with, would he allow himself to say disparaging, cruel, harsh, unkind things about them? And I don't think so. And I think that we have plenty of examples in our hadith and in the tradition to support that. I think we know that the way that we engage, the way that we're encouraged to engage based on this example, is to treat each person in the same way that we would want to be treated, to treat each person with respect, even though people that hurl unkindness at us, right? We know that he was this way. And so I want to put that out there, because I know that that's a lot to ask, right? Nobody wants to be nice when people are being mean to them. And the bottom line is, when we are online, total strangers can say terrible things to us, especially if they find out if you're a Muslim, right? People have said terrible things to me, about my religion, about our prophet, right? It makes me so, right? Your response to that is anger. It is anger. I get angry. And you have to learn how to process that in a way that allows you to either not respond, right? Or to respond in a way that would make our prophet, peace be upon him, proud of us. And it's very hard to do. I know that's a hard ask, but I honestly believe, right? There's a famous quote. I think it was Maya Angelou. I forget who said it, but they said, people won't remember what you said. They'll remember how you made them feel. And when we engage with other people online, it may feel like we're just talking to a device, to a screen. We're sitting there in our pajamas on the couch with our phone, and somebody's saying mean things to us, and it doesn't seem like there's any consequence to just come fire back with something, snarky or rude or mean. But as Muslims, and as Muslims who are public about who we are and what we believe, we do ourselves a disservice. We do our religion and our community a disservice when we allow ourselves to be drugged down to engage on a level that is anything less than what we know that our prophet would do. And that is, again, I know that's hard. I know I fail many times, but I do think that that's an ideal that we need to strive for. And I think it will set us apart, right? I think that's a thing that will make people stop and think, because it's so easy, because there's so many people that are engaging in such negative ways, that when somebody sees a person who's respectful, who's kind, who's got all these great qualities online, they pause and they say, what's different about that person? And of course, the thing that's different is that our belief is that this is the right way to be. We believe that this is the right way to be. And that's because this is what Islam teaches us. I feel like I've been talking for a long time, so I will wrap up. I know how hard it is to sit and listen to somebody for a long time on video. I am really, again, very pleased to have been here. And I apologize if I said anything wrong or offensive. And I ask that you please forgive any of my mistakes. I also ask that you reflect on the prophetic character. And I would love to hear any reflections that you have about how you think the prophetic character plays out online in an ideal way. And I would also like to, if it's okay, offer a very short dua. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya Allah, we ask that you be with our community here in this online space, in this digital mosque that we're able to have with the technology that was built with the minds that you gave us to innovate and to create, and a reflection of your great innovation and creation. We ask that you help us to remember you in all things, to know that you are the source of all goodness, and that as we turn to you, as we strive to do what is right, you will work through us, and we must only meet you part of the way, and you will come and meet us the rest of the way and carry us through. Help us to remember our brothers and our sisters and our friends and our family around the world, those who are suffering, those who are succeeding. Help us to keep them in our hearts, to elevate them, to lift them up. We ask that you forgive us when we do things that are wrong, even if it's a mistake, because we do make so many mistakes. And we thank you. We are so truly grateful for the work and the sacrifice of the people who are able to bring this group together, this community together, to encourage one another, and to make sure that we're all focused on you throughout this beautiful Jummah. Ameen.